Guess what we're talking about today? The Odin. Ugh. Let me tell you something. I've been with these for a week, and it's not a fair time. I can't give it a final analysis or anything like that. But it is a time to get some... Let's do a sound check, right? And maybe that's what we'll call this, the sound check. And we're checking in on the sound of these. What are these doing? What do they sound like to me? Now, what my initial impression of these was, you know how you go through like a Best Buy or a TV store, and they've got all the TV monitors splayed out in front of you, and they all look super bright and sharp, and they're just grabbing your attention. Well, that's by design, because the salesmen go through and they turn the sharpness all the way up, they turn the contrast all the way up, they turn the brightness up, they do everything they can to make that picture just pop and grab your attention, because they want you to stop and look and find out what it is you're looking at. Well, great, but you get that home, what's the first thing you do? You turn the sharpness down, you turn the brightness down, you balance the blacks, you turn all that stuff off, and then you can watch a movie, and enjoy it. Well, my experience with the Odin, like when I first got it, was like, wow, this is like that TV monitor in the middle of Best Buy with all the shit turned on. It's like, it's super bright. It's loud across the frequency spectrum. It's mid-rangey. It's got, it's just there's detail everywhere. It's just coming at me. And I'm like, it's just too much. It's like, I would go back and listen to the other headphones, and I'd be like, oh, it was like jumping from a boiling hot bath cauldron, and you go into a nice warm, like calming environment. It's like, oh, it was almost a pleasure to go back to other headphones. And I'm like, this ain't a $3,400 headphone I'm hearing. I'm not hearing $3,400 sound out of these things. And I'm like, and then online I'm reading, and it's like, everybody's like, oh, this is the best headphone ever, and I'm this and that. I'm like, you guys are cracked. And there's this treble harshness that's there, and I have a slight tinnitus in my ears anyway. I should confess that. And it's like, if certain frequencies will just set it off, and my ears ring. The Odins were certainly were triggering that, and I'm like, oh, this is not a pleasant experience. And I'm like, I should be getting more out of these. Do I have to sell them? What do I got to do? There's also the break-in factor, which I think is exaggerated by some folks. I think they say, oh, it's a completely different headphone at 100 hours, and I'm like, if I got to go through $100 of garbage to get to something that I can listen to, you've built a bad headphone, right? And I was using my SP1000, the Astel Kearns, Astel and Ultima, they call it, and this is a good source. I mean, almost anything I put through this sounds really good, and then I'm running that, and then I can add the Hugo 2, which is super detailed DAC, one of the best, some people say one of the best ever made. So the first thing I did was I was playing with tips, and then I went to the Octa cable, which is this nice Effect Audio Leonidas 2. Looks pretty, but it sound pretty good on the Fortes, and so I'm assuming that it's going to do good things on the Odin. I don't know if I heard a difference or not, but as I was putting them in with the Octa, I got them like just a little bit into my ear, and all of a sudden I heard bass, and I'm like, whoa, what was that? And I'm like, because normally when I put an earphone in, I just put it in and you shove it in, you get a good seal, and you play, and it's fine normally. With the Odin, I'm finding that a slight insertion, it's kind of gross, ears are gross, but a very slight insertion, and then a slight pull down on it so that the tip is angled slightly up from just a normal side press in, if I angle the tip up, and all of a sudden I'm getting this kicking bass. In fact, I'm getting bass that rivals, maybe not exceeds, but it certainly rivals the Tia Forte, and they're both dynamic drivers, so it kind of makes sense. In fact, I should be getting insane stuff from the Odin, because the Odin has two dynamic drivers. It's got a sub bass and a regular and a mid bass. But the bass came in. Didn't help the treble at all, but the bass came in, and I'm like, okay, so now at least I'm hearing some significant bass, and I'm starting to hear some of because the bass was detailed before, but it wasn't very present. That brought the bass presence up. Changing the insertion brought the bass presence up quite a bit. So I'm like, okay, so I'm kind of working with these headphones now, and I'm feeling, all right, now we've got this. Let's see if we can work on the other stuff. And what I did was I changed the source, and I went to the computer, and I went to the Hugo TT1, It has fewer taps than the Hugo 2, but it is a quieter device because it's got this galvanic isolation, whatever it is, it's a quieter signal path, and it's also balanced through the whole signal chain, whereas this is unbalanced. The Hugo 2 is unbalanced. And then I ran it through the Macintosh. Cue the B-roll, right? The Macintosh is a tube pre. It's a very expensive tube pre, but it's a tube pre. All of a sudden, things fell into line. The image got crystal clear. All of the congestion that was making my ears ring dropped off, and I got an experience. The only thing I can liken it to, like what I heard was like, I went to a show once, show environment, but they treated the room, and they had the Vandersteen 7 set up with supreme amplification, like probably $300,000 worth of stuff to drive the Vandersteen 7s. And they had just come out, and Richard was there, Richard Vandersteen, and who's I've met a couple times, amazing dude. And it was like they were playing Stevie Ray Vaughan, which another of my favorite artists. It was like a transformative experience, and that's the closest likeness I can give you to the Odin through the Macintosh. Once I hit the 2600, it was like everything stitched together. It was a cohesive sound. The crossovers, you couldn't even hear anything regarding crossovers. I wouldn't have even known that there was a crossover in there from the sound of it. And I found myself, I knew that it was something special, this pairing, because it was like about 1 a.m. when I found it, and I was up for another 2.5 hours. I have to work at 6:30 in the morning, and I was up till 3:30, 3:45, just going from track to track to track because I had found something that I needed to hear and investigate, and my brain was like not shutting off. So I had listened to Dark Side of the Moon. I know, like the most played thing ever. I bring up the most like clickbaity music. It's what everybody listens to, but you listen to it because it's got some qualities and it's a reference that everybody understands. The Dark Side of the Moon audition on one night, which was on the night before, which was through the SP1000, was harsh, and like the bells hit on time, and I'm like, oh Lord, just get these things out of my ears. It was like they were making my ears bleed. And through the tube amplification, it was like wow, it was like just crystal clear and not harsh and listenable, and then the chord struck off of the keyboard, the bow, and it just like boom, you just fall into that song. It was stunning. I mean, you just wanted to stay there. Like everything about this headphone was suddenly just detailed and clear, but not harsh, and quiet, but inviting. It was like neutral but clean, and the imaging was fantastic. Soundstage widened out. Still not the widest soundstage I've ever heard, but it was a wider soundstage that certainly was befitting of this $3,400 headphone. I keep saying that, $3,400. Oh, God. But then you realize it took $11,000 to get these headphones up on their skis. $7,000 for the for the integrated amp, $5,000 on the price of the TT. It's not worth that now, but the TT1. I don't care. I'm like, if it makes better sound, it makes better sound, right? I'm not saying it will cost that much for you. You may not have ears that are, as sensitive, and the tinnitus and some of the things I got to deal with, but holy God, the American Beauty, there's this 2496 version of it that has this concussive bass that just, it rattles your skull when this bass hits. And that through the Odin, it transported you to another dimension. It was so good. I could not pick this apart sonically. There was nothing about this headphone, once I found the right synergy, that made me say, oh, I would tweak that. Oh, I would, I'd like to hear maybe a little more super top end or a little more openness here. Like, no, I couldn't find anything on this headphone that I would change. And even on the Forte, I've given you things that I would change maybe. But I love the experience from the Fortes. I wouldn't change a thing about this. It's that good. But it's a pain. I mean, it's like, I'm fighting you, dude. I'm fighting you. I'm gonna find something. But once you find it, it's like, whoa, like, just stop everything and listen. So if you seek crazy detail, if you're looking for a crazy detailed headphone, this is the Odin. The Odin is by far the detail on this I've not heard. And I haven't listened to the KSE 1500s, which is a pure electrostat. I'm assuming the detail on that is pretty insane. But on the Odin, crazy detail. Like, if you want a detailed pair of headphones, get this. I still don't think it's a bass head headphone. I think it is a bassy headphone. Once you adjust them and get them in just right. And I guess what I'm saying is, this thing's fussy. I mean, you're just not going to be able to pick it up and throw it in and go, perfect. Oh, the other thing I need to talk about is there's a compression effect. When you put these in, they crinkle. And you think, like, what the heck? It sounds like somebody crinkling up a piece of plastic next to your ear. It's like, and apparently that's the sound of the dynamic driver moving because you're changing the air pressure as it goes in and out. You're actually compressing, and you hear this really, like, almost alarming crinkle, and it's not pleasant. It's not a good thing. So there's a compression effect on the dynamic driver when you put these in. They crinkle. And now I'm thinking about the K-In N8 because that's got a tube stage in it, and it's making me regret selling that Continental V5. Remember the Continental V5 that I packed off and said, it's not really working with the Forte? I kind of wish I had it back, because I would love to hear what the tube stage sounds like on that driving the Odin, because while it didn't pair well with the Forte, you know what the lesson is? Don't ever sell shit. Just keep it. But I hear they make more. No, I'm going to try and get an N8 in here and see if the N8 with the tube stage sounds great, or maybe I'll just buy a Woo W-A8, which is the tube amplifier from Woo, which everybody raves about. I think it's the tube creating a filter effect that's causing the Odin to fall into line. And if the N8 can get us there too, then we'd have a portable solution for the Odin. Because right now, I ain't lugging that thing around. Nope, not gonna happen. But I just spend more money because I'm a big dumb guy, right? But my update to you then is that it's been a journey of a week for me. It's a listening room experience. This is as close to an end game and an in-ear that I've ever heard. But you're going to have, I'm just giving my caveat, my warning to anybody looking to buy these is, don't think it ends when you just buy the headphone. You're going to have to work. This thing's clicking around. Don't think it ends when you buy the headphone. You're going to have to work to make these like fall into place for you. To get to a point that you enjoy them. And maybe you'll just enjoy them out of the box, and that's going to be good enough for you. And that's fine. But you are spending $3,400 on a pair of headphones. If you buy $3,400 speakers, are you going to expect to run them off of your iPhone? That's an interesting question, isn't it? We have to change our dynamic. We have to change our paradigm, our outlook on our worlds, because these headphones are costing as much as your Utopias. They're costing as much as the ZMFs. They're costing as much as the HE1000. These cost as much, and we should treat them that way. Summary on the Odin: really troubling start, very satisfying finish. And I'm going to keep going, and if I get the K-In and something to actually expand on this, I will. And I'm still waiting on the ZMFs. I got up to number 12 on the list. I'm 12. Still in assembly, not in quality check yet, but we'll see. Those will get here. Zach, you listened a little bit. You moved me up the list. I appreciate it. And I'll talk to you guys later. That's my Odin update. Stay tuned. We'll keep going.